I decided to go ahead and start on the door instead of going to the other side because there's just a lot of stuff here that's I have to figure out as to how I'm going to go about it. It's a pretty difficult situation to try and establish the shape of the door. It would seem like a pretty straightforward job, just to make a profile, since it's pretty much a straight roll with a small body line in it. But I have really very little guidance because the door has to be the shape as it ends right here. So the best I could do, because there's a scallop here, is to make a template of the shape as close to the end as possible. But it changes drastically from this point to by the time you get to the actual door skin. So I have to make a temporary piece here based on this template to try to get a start point. I'm going to have to inch worm my way across here with a straight edge from one end to the other. I'm going to have to establish the shape on the other end of the door and just take this down until this profile dies into this profile as it meets on this compound curve here. So I have to establish this first, and then I have to subtract for the sheet metal, and then I have to bring a flange over. I have to step that flange back so that it doesn't interfere with the actual skin, and create about a 1/2 inch flange for the door skin itself to fold around. Now also what I've had to do is I took the top of the crashed door skin over here and I put it on because it looks like a simple piece. It's just folded over the top, and then it has a little break here and another break on the outside, and then heads downhill. But it changes shape. It has a curve in this direction before it establishes the straight eye. It also has a swoop in it, a very gentle swoop in it from the rear to the front, and it sweeps up. So trying to make that one little edge would be kind of a nightmare to no end, where I could just cut it here and join the new piece of sheet metal, which would be just a roll down and under. It's going to be hard enough getting these door openings to be correct because the door has to be folded over. You can't just simply trim it. You have to trim it plus a 1/2 inch in order to make the flange, and once you bend the flange, it has to go around and create a uniform door opening. So a lot of challenges here. One of the first challenges I had was this the door was twisted because it was impacted, and this impact bar, the side impact bar, I tried bending it back, but it was to no avail. The door wanted to sweep in at the bottom from the impact, so I simply drilled out the spot welds, let it loose, kept the door out and spaced it to where it needed to be, and then re-welded the impact bar, and now it's squared back up to the opening. The upper piece was slightly tweaked, but I just had to grind a little bit off the top of that upper piece in order for this flange to fit back. So that's the direction I'm heading right now. It's going to be a hunt and peck situation here. Like I said, this fits back here, but as soon as you move ahead, this is moving in a slope. You can see from this direction here to here. So this is smaller in here. Also, I'm going to have to do a little mud work here first because this is not really 100% uniform on this curve. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and sweeten that up a little bit before I establish my skin, so I don't have to mud the skin and that. So that's where we are now. All right, with a little guide template at the front, taped in over there to match this profile over here. Now I can get an idea of how well the shape lines up. I have a piece of 90-degree aluminum, and I'm running across both profiles, and I run it in here to see how well it's going to flush up. It's about 50 thousandths thick. It's the same thickness roughly as the sheet metal is going to be there. So I can go across here. It's resting on that front and across this profile here, and I can check to see how the sheet metal, if it was supported by this profile. It's a little weak right here, so I'll have to pick this up and bring this out just a little bit there. You can see here that that's also the case. Probably about 30 thousandths too narrow there, and here also. But now that I have two profiles established, I can come across both profiles and see just how the sheet metal is going to work out based on those two profiles. Okay, I don't know if you can see what's going on here, but I've developed this piece. You see, it's got a step. It'll overlay this inner part of the door, and it'll get rosetted through. I'll drill these out and spray it up with the weld-through primer, and then I'll seam seal this. This inner piece is actually about 1/8 of an inch away or in deeper than the side itself, because I don't want this piece to contact the actual skin. Now what I've gone and done is I put taped a piece of pattern paper up along the side over here, so that I'm developing the next piece, and I just took a sharp razor blade and used this as a guide to cut down to get this curvature of the inner door. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this piece to this vertical piece here, and then I'll go back and I'll use the door jamb itself as a guide, or excuse me, the quarter panel edge as a guide to get the back edge of this pattern, and that'll give me my basic pattern for the piece that goes in this direction. And I'll develop that up out of metal, and I'll space it off, making allowances for everything as I go. So here's the pattern fully developed. Now I'll make this piece out of metal. I use the quarter panel itself and round the X-Acto knife down it and put a trim on it, and I'll have to make the metal piece with the idea that there'll be an overlap, and establish my gap 3/16 of an inch plus the thickness of the sheet metal for the wrap, and that'll be my my overlay that I'll have to calculate as I go along. But this gives me a good start point to make the metal piece that'll go in the other direction, to be creating the lip for the outer skin to connect to. I'll have to make a little one on the bottom, which is a pretty simple straight deal, and then I'll have another situation that's a little bit different up front, that I'll have to extend the front. There's a flange over here already, and I'll be able to use this flange in this direction up to here, but from here I'll have to extend it out, but it'll also have to be built out in this direction, just like I did the back. So that's it for right now. Well, that worked out a little bit better than I'd expected it. So you can see I've got my inner panel here, and now this is the outer panel. It has a bend over here, flanges to this piece. You can see there's a step here, and this is where the sheet metal will hopefully, let me get a little piece of sheet metal here. Otherwise this will have to be trimmed down, but this is where the sheet metal will lay for the skin, flush up with the door, or excuse me, the quarter panel, all the way down there. Needs a little fine tuning, a little tweaking. Once it's welded on, it'll probably pull around a little bit, so I'll have to do a little beating and banging to get it exactly where it needs to be. But right now this is tight. I'll have to trim the gap and so forth, but that's pretty much what it looks like there. Hopefully that'll be sufficient to hold the skin strong. Anyway, that's kind of cool. I like that.